about life and his thoughts and his experiences and his uh, whatever else you want to share with us. So what's on your mind, Harrison?
A question that's been sitting in the forefront of mind is why am I constantly trying to control things that I cannot control?
Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, I don't know why my screen disappeared. Let's see. I have to figure out how to do this. Just give me 1 second. Okay, I give up. I give up trying to control that I know anything about technology. So Harrison, your question is, why are you trying to control things that you cannot control, correct?
Yes,
Why do you think that is?
probably because I think that I am at the center of everything. And I wanna I wanna conquer things.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, it's a very deep principle behind the desire and the need to control. In the wisdom text, it expresses to us that control appears as a promise for security. But you will notice very clearly, the more we try to control, it turns into a factory for anxiety. So control equals to, can be equal to anxiety. The reason is we try to control because we want certainty in the material world. By design, the material world, there are certain certainties, but everything is not certain. But we want to be certain about everything. And so, because we want to feel certainty, so we try, the more we want to feel certainty in this every aspect of our life, the more we try to control. And the more we try to control, the more uncertain we become. So, this is what happens. The very nature of control is not something that is the very nature of who we are, because our duty is actually to uh, become an observer, not the controller. An observer of what? Observer of divine play that is happening in our lives. And you'll notice that the mind plays a very interesting role in this concept. Mind thinks that if I make everything according to my plan, that I will actually become peaceful. That's how the mind is involved in this saga. But then life will also question this notion, because then the life itself will uh, challenge the notion of the mind, because then it'll say, then your peace depends on everything going according to your plan. And so between the mind and the life, they're having these dialogues. And this plan to the mind's need to have everything go according to its plan is actually disguised as safety, but in all reality, you become a slave to it because the planning stage is a continuous uh, revolving thought and revolving uh, plans that the mind makes about everything in every junction about life. So, as we know from the Gita, uh, when Arjuna was in this predicament, then he wasn't sure what to do because so far he had so much control over his life. The greatest warrior of time, he had the biggest palace. Everybody was paying taxes to this great kingdom, and everything was taken away. Slowly, slowly, he lost all control to the point where he's standing in the middle of the battlefield where his own family members want to take him out. He has the weapons, he has the strength, he's the most powerful warrior of his time. And he's recognizing he has no control whatsoever, that his own body, the movement of his body, the weapons are falling out of his hands, and his knees are weak. He can't even stand on his own. So, what's going on? Where is the control? So, he approaches his friend, his dear friend Krishna, who happened to be his charioteer. He says, Krishna, please, I can't do this. I've lost all composure. Please help me out. And so, this is the ultimate necessity that is required when we have this tendency to control. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, in that beautiful dialogue, we recognize that uh, Krishna and Arjuna, these two friends, they're having this discussion. And Krishna tells Arjuna that yes, you want to be in control, but now you recognize you do not have control. Is because you are thinking that the result of your actions, that you have full ownership over it. And this is the whole notion of the material world. We work and we want results and we should get this much and we want a certain outcome out of everything we do. So Krishna tells his friend Arjuna that you have to release the ownership of the outcome of your actions. So you have influence over your action, but you do not possess sovereignty over the entire field of your reality. And this is what Krishna is sharing with Arjuna. Think of, I do gardening. Used to do a lot more. Now we have garden in the back of uh, our ashram. And every Sunday people come to do gardening. And they plant different seeds, Lakshman and Enrique and others. Can you imagine they plant the seed on the soil, on the compost, and they command the rain to show up? The probability of that uh, is just a lot of uncertainty there. So we cannot command the rain or say, you speak honestly, but we cannot always expect that others will receive because their interpretation of what you say may be different. We can love people, but we cannot command them and expect them to love us back the way we love them. So, in other words, we cannot command the result of our actions. And this is what Krishna is telling Arjuna, that we must release. Then it begs the question, I'll just do it, but I'll just do it carelessly. But Krishna also clarifies that to Arjuna. You must act with sincerity and you must care very deeply. And you must also act very wisely. And this is where Arjuna finally gets it. So, Harrison, what do you think?
It's a lot to sit with.
Everyone has a different nuances to why they want to control. And you'll be surprised. The more we try to control, the deeper the anxiety. And I have this philosophy that wherever I go, I have people control everything so that I can I can actually always be calm and peaceful. People ask me, Veda, how do you remain so calm and peaceful? Is because everyone else is doing all the work and I'm just there observing all this uh, hard work that everyone is doing. And another interesting thing, this whole principle of control is actually fear, wearing the clothes of responsibility because we want to control. We think, oh, that's the responsible thing to do. But what we call responsibility is actually anxiety, but in a more respectable terminology. So this control is our need to make sure that everything is okay. And it sounds very responsible. But if we look very carefully, underneath that responsibility, it is the emotion that I need the reality to behave the way I want because that will reassure me. So this is the little subtle attachment that we have to control. So these are little nuances of how control is takes different morphs into uh, different shapes and different emotions. And another idea is that we want control, we like to control, is because we feel a sense of safety and security in our life. But we know from our yoga texts, life becomes controllable when you let go of control and let someone else do the controlling. Because in all reality, everything is already being controlled. There is a system to this, what people may consider madness in this world. And that system is there is a universal law, there is a universal system that is at play. Of course, human beings also have their own system within the universal system. And and this ability to let go of control for someone else to control is recognizing the observer consciousness. And that observer consciousness is the self. When we are situated in our true position as Atman, as the conscious self, you'll start to recognize, how everything is moving all around in its beautiful system. And that's where the divine play comes in because you'll start to notice people's bodies will change, emotions will rise and fall, relationships will evolve and shift, weather changes, money comes and goes, health changes, and you'll notice praises will become criticisms, success becomes failure, birth turns into death. And when we're not situated in ourselves, the ego will say, how do I stop all these things from changing and keep it the way I want to keep it? And the consciousness, the, the self aware awareness, which is the nature of the soul, will simply observe and be aware of everything changing and not be affected by it. What do you think, Harrison? You want to share anything on that one?
How, I guess, what's the process then in not being attached?
Not being attached to what?
This body, life, like staying in the observer versus being attached to the things that are constantly changing that
Hmm.
are going to change.
In the yoga practices, every day we do sadhana in the morning and at noon and in the afternoon for a reason. That reason is to refocus our consciousness from looking out into the world and looking inward. Because the more we look out, the more distracting and the more we want to control. And the more you look in and you look from within, and it's so beautiful. And that's where the divine play is. This Prahlad Maharaj, this young sage, he expresses this principle how the world is a beautiful stage and the ego is the curtain. It just covers everything that's happening. You can't quite see. So we have to remove this veil that we are the controllers, that we have any control whatsoever. Krishna always tells Arjuna, the control that we have is of the action. How do we act? And we must act because by design we have to act. But without being attached to the fruits of the result of that action. And that's when, and the consciousness shifts when you recognize that it's all happening. Everything's going to happen. If you're sad, that's not going to last forever. It's going to change. Sadness is going to go. If you're happy, there's something else coming. By design, the dualities of life is a phenomenon of this world. And the way we get out of this duality is by going in. You have to enter into the cave of your heart. That's where the shelter is. So the yogis are always meditating. Internally, they're not meditating outside. In Bhagavad Gita, there is a very beautiful text where it says, Sarvasya chaham hridishan vidishtu, that the divine lens is not the lens that we see with the eyes. The divine lens, to see the divine play in this world, the lens is inside. So you have to go inside and put on that lens. And that's why the sadhana is such a big integral part of our lives. What do you think?
Yes. Yeah.
What are your reflections on this? How do
So,
you hide from the world? People say, I'm going to go to the forest, I'm going to go to the beach and hide. The sages are saying, no, you need to hide inside. When you go into meditation, what you're literally doing is trying to enter into that space of silence, into that space of peace, into that space of love. That's what a sadhana is. Sadhana means true self-love, not getting a pedicure, manicure, or massage. You know, it's actually about learning to go into your space, which is the heart space. That is where we belong. That's why this call is called the heart space call. Our whole objective is to see how to remind you to go to the place where you truly belong, which is your home, which is in the heart. And that is done through daily spiritual practices. There's many sages in the history the, of sages when we study the wisdom text. Whenever any situation comes, their first go-to is what would my spiritual master think? How would my grandfather or grandma react and deal with this situation? So there is a moment of pause because we have to have uh, that connection where our mind, when it's not working, where we are judgment is clouded, then we need some sort of connection. And that sadhana gives you a connection. And the other connection is the sangha. Sangha means like-minded spiritual seekers. And so together how would Kushita handle this situation? And then we get into this principle of, okay, that's another perspective. And when this too is not giving you a conclusive answer, then you get away from it all and just go and do something to serve others. Because in that exchange of serving others, the lens will shift again because it's serving others is a divine action and it's a divine uh, exchange that is happening. It's not two people, it's two divine beings exchanging. So that also shifts the consciousness where we can immediately recalibrate and get ourselves free from this desire for excessive control. We control actions. Was we getting a little technical here? Kushita, please, what would you like to share?
No, it's such an insightful message, and my question comes at the other extreme. Is there ever like too much letting go, too much trusting the divine plan? I mean, I feel good and I feel safe, but I must say, being Latin, coming from a traditional family, breaking the paradigms and all, and continuing this path of letting go and letting God lead the way. And as time evolves, Latin woman and just truly trusting the process. In fact, yesterday, I'll share with all of you just something beautiful that happened. I got invited to another collaborative book. I finished my chapter writing with like these deep questions that I have not done to myself. The chapter was called The Heartprint We Leave Behind. and it's a collaborative book with other humanitarians, and they were asking like really deep questions, like how did the service start? Like, what is your first memory of being in service and what that means to you? And I have this heart so expanded as I'm continuing opening community here, and everything feels right. And I feel I'm being whispered the path and staying grounded. But wow, is there like a too much letting go and letting God? Uh, it's I don't feel scared anymore. I feel like in my conferences sometimes say just jump out of the plane, get the parachute. It'll open up. If you get stuck in a tree, you'll have a different view that you haven't seen. But I'm saying all this, but sometimes there is that deeper question. So that's my question.
Yeah, that's a very nice, deep question. So we have seen letting go of control does not mean letting go of control means actually we become more sincere in our actions. Our actions become more deeper, more heartfelt, and more genuine. And that's what letting go of control means. Because you really recognize that everything happens by divine arrangement. And because we recognize that, we become more sincere in executing those actions and those duties. You become a better mother, you become a better partner, you become a better everything. Because you're recognizing that every one of those actions is really someone else doing it, but it's just through you. When a mother cares for a child, it's someone else caring. And so that caring becomes even so deep that it immediately touches people's hearts. When you recognize that when every one of your action is truly impacting souls on the deepest level, that means you have full control because you have let go of control. And that full control is being done by someone else. And only the creator has full control. So when we let go of control, then everything comes in divine order because it's divine control. So therefore, the sages always say that it's so important to recognize that letting go of control is the most beautiful thing because sincerity, humility, all the spiritual fragrances are there in that action. And the result is very beautiful. Because what's happening is the ego that pollutes the energy flow of that action. The minute we think that we are the doers, that energy of purity is tainted by the ego. So the divine flow is somewhat, clean water becomes a little muddy. And nobody likes muddy water. People want to see clean. We were just recently in Bacalar and you could see the water so clear. You could see, it seems like 20 feet down. It's so clear you can see the fishes swimming because the clarity is there. So in our lives, when we are really letting go of control, that means every action will touch so many hearts. And that's how you know. So all the Latinas out there, do it more with sincerity and humility and let go and let the divine do its divine play. That's what sages would say. Thank you, Kashita. Maggie, would you like to add something?
No, I agree with everything you said, but I totally resonated with what Kashita said, because I find myself sometimes just saying, "Oh, I don't have to do anything. The universe is going to take care of it," or "Oh, I'm just trying to co-create with the universe." And sometimes I'm wondering if I'm just being too loose, um, with my, I mean, I have unwavering faith, but maybe, I'm just like trying to sit by for the ride. So this really helped put in perspective that I am actually co-creating in action and in reality. So I really, really appreciate, um, Koshita bringing that up, as well as your response to that. Viva
Thank you.
Latinas.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else would like to add anything to this? Yes, Kesha Vima, please.
Um, I guess I'm wondering if you can elaborate a little bit more about where the line is where we have to plan certain things in our lives, obviously to a certain extent. So when do we draw the line of like this is too much planning? I mean, we can't just be like just sitting here and just everything's going to happen. So at what point do we draw that line and say this is enough? Now it's up to the divine.
You never stop planning. That's the beautiful thing, that when you're in divine action, divine play, you plan everything to the T. Like I give an example of Nitai. Many of you know him, but some of you may not know. I remember he was organizing a retreat. I'm not sure if it was engineering brain or his spiritual consciousness, but he was organizing a retreat and we are going out camping with all the students. And we had this big, huge igloos. Igloos are this hot and cold holding containers. And so we were carrying all this food in the truck. And they're packing lettuces and tomatoes and vegetables and all kinds of stuff. And I just completely let go. And I went there and I was going to start cooking. And I said, can someone tell me where the cucumbers are? And it's so funny. Nitai pulls out a sheet of paper. He pulls out a sheet of paper and he flips through page number 3 or 4 or something. And he looks at it and he goes down. He goes, cooler number 3, it's in the left-hand corner, underneath the tomatoes, above the potatoes. It will be, and it was just like so detailed. And I was just thinking to myself, my God, wow, it's pretty wild how detailed and thorough this guy is. So it's another sign that we do our due diligence. I mean, Keshavima, you organize all these things. You spend 2 weeks researching Airbnbs to finalize on one Airbnb. I mean, it's like, oh my God. So it's the beautiful thing because it's really deep meditation, and that is also meditation when you're doing all of these things and relinquishing attachment to the results, but yet because you've done so much due diligence, your prana is so focused that things start to manifest. So detailed planning is actually not you, it's your sincerity to be part of this divine play. So in our lives, we have to plan, but without being attached to the results. And after all the planning and everything in detail, you recognize that you just keep planning and keep planning and keep executing, and someone else will decide the results. Because there is a lot of components to the results of our actions. I don't have the clock. Anyone keeping a clock?
You have about 15 minutes.
Okay. So much happens when we recognize that the drama that we see in this world is a creation of the mind and the ego. Everything that we see, it's a creation of mind, ego, and the different forms of it: lust, greed, envy, jealousy, anger. These are all creations of the ego. And to enter into that divine play, not the drama, but the divine play, is that shift in consciousness. And so therefore we do everything planned in such due diligence, such detailed planning, but yet, okay, now we'll see what the divine play is. You'll notice more and more in your life, you'll plan so many things. Sometime after planning and strategizing and working through everything, something else will come about. Harrison was just telling me yesterday he was looking for a job and nothing, 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 nothing. And boom, there's like 4 people called him to hire him at the same time, same day. And go figure, you make all these plans and all these things that you want. And so it's very difficult for the mind to accept. But when we are in that consciousness of being the self, the Atman, servant of God, then you start to recognize that your true servitorship, true servitude is what the divine is waiting to make everything flow through you. Anyone else would like to add? Harrison, you want to add anything more?
What what's coming to mind is, isn't the best way to detach from all this stuff is find a way just to, like you said, serve. It's like focusing less on like what I'm doing, but on how, you know, it's serving others instead.
Yes, yes. The secret to success in this world is always keeping the mood of service, because service creates a portal for us of divine connection, not with just the person, but with God. Because that action of service, it's not an act of ego. If it is, then you'll miss the point. You'll lose the connection. So it is really about service. Just always, every action is an action, recognizing that this service, I'm serving someone. Even if you're doing it unwillingly, you just keep serving and you'll notice your consciousness will shift. So a life of service is really recognizing that we're instrument in this world. If you're not serving, means we're not recognizing we're instrument in this world. Serving doesn't only also mean just serving others. You have to learn to serve yourself. Because inside of this body, this is a temple of God. So you have to take care of this temple as well as all the other temples and churches. Because everyone is a walking temple. Everyone is a walking church. Everyone is a walking home of God. So this is the consciousness of service. Always thinking, how can I be of service to others? I will mention that uh, no questions? Any more questions or thoughts or reflections anyone wants to share? Okay. So I will
Well,
just
maybe I can say something about,
Anandini, please.
okay, so whenever we have some thoughts, like when we are serving and we get some negative thoughts or some things like, I really feel like this is, I'm doing it for the other person, but it's not my thing to do this. But because sometimes you feel like you're just not connected with yourself because you're just serving everybody else. And you feel like, what about me? What about me? But that's not a good thought then. So you have to always go back to, no, this is not about me. It's about serving others. Don't become so focused on yourself, what you like, how you want it to be, how you want to serve. Think about how others will be happy with your service, and then you will be more connected. So every time a negative thought comes in, you just leave it, let it go, and go back to no, and see other persons as a spirit soul and not their conditioned nature, and serve. Right? This is what you think.
Yes, very beautiful.
Oh,
But also don't forget that your temple is also important. That you're you're a walking temple of God, so you should also take care of your temple. And that is what it means to do morning sadhana. Morning sadhana literally means cleansing the temple. If your mind and your heart is filled with material desires and anger and envy and jealousy and all these qualities, then what happens? How comfortable would it be for God to live in your heart when you have all this uh, strong, immovable debris in your heart and your mind? So therefore, sadhana is really, really critical, that one must early morning clean the temple of the heart. And this is why every single day the sages before sunrise, they're up doing sadhana. It's to clean the temple of the heart. And when the temple is clean, it's so easy to go and help others to clean their temples and to assist them to serve them. Can you imagine your own kitchen is dirty, is a mess? You go into the kitchen, you don't feel like cooking, but you go into other people's kitchen and you want to help them. So it's important to clean up your own house. So clean up your own every day. Not doesn't take a lot, an hour, minimum an hour of sadhana every day. It's powerful. Just cleaning up the temple. Bhava Mai, would you like to add something?
Yes, I just want a little bit of clarification. So
Please.
sometimes I find myself planning and endeavoring for something, and then it may get to the point where I feel like I'm endeavoring so much and it's not working out. So I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna just kind of, like they say, let go and let God. But sometimes it makes me think about, how I don't know. I always think of like, Thomas Edison, like he had so many chances to make this light bulb and it didn't work, but he kept going. So I'm like, okay, I got to keep going if I want to see these results. I got to keep going, got to keep going. But at the same time, I'm remembering, like, if it's too much endeavor, it's too much passion, and it might not work, like just kind of like lay off of the results a little bit. So, is there a fine line, or what is that balance? What is that fine line to recognize and say, oh, it's just putting too much passion into it, and or I should just keep going?
Hmm. Yeah, Rupa Goswami, one of the six sages of Vrindavan, he actually addresses this. Over endeavoring for material gain is an impediment. And so in spiritual life, you'll notice the more you endeavor, the harder it gets because you're working on fine tuning, you know. you can move all the big debris out of the way, but the little one, the fine one, requires special tools and it needs more and more help. And so the more we advance in our determination to serve, the more we need support and help and prayers of others. And so, therefore, we don't stop making spiritual endeavors. We become even more vigorous in that spiritual endeavor. Material endeavors, you may have to recalibrate for sure, because how much money do you need? How much of recognition do you need? If 5 million followers is not enough and you're going to be in anxiety, you need more followers. So it's just one has to really figure out by asking oneself the question, are we feeding, is our actions feeding the heart? Is it pleasing to our spiritual masters? Is it pleasing to God? This is the question one must ask. And when you'll recognize that when we read the ancient text, yesterday I was reading a special text, a loving exchange between Lokanath, one saint named Lokanath Swami, and Narottam Das Thakur. It's very beautiful. And it was so evident that when Narottam Das Thakur, he's having this mystical experiences due to his deep sadhana, and he's having these revelations. Many times in your spiritual life, you will have revelations. So he's having these revelations, and he can't quite put his finger on it. He wanted to make sure that he's not hallucinating or he's not, wrongly interpreting his revelations. And then he goes and approaches humbly his teacher. My dear teacher, please tell me, what is this vision that I'm having? And the teacher just hugs him and embraces him and showers him with tears of love and affection. Because this is what he was waiting to see his disciple, his student, through the practice of sadhana, through the practice of deep meditation. He had finally cracked through the veil and has entered into the realm of divine play. And so this is why when we make endeavors, we have to check. When we're struggling too much for something and it's not working out, we have to check. There could be, the ego is, overly active. It could be that maybe we're doing something nice, but then we're hurting others. Because human beings are known to self-destruct and self-sabotage. And a teacher who's looking at it from a zoomed out perspective, someone in the Sangha who's on the similar path, can actually help us to fine-tune that. So this is why it's quite powerful to always have a Sangha, always have this community where we all grow together and share each other's journeys and wisdoms and connect through the spiritual journey, connect through service. Okay, I don't know, Bhavamai, did that help at all?
Yes, my takeaway. Well, I love the Lokanath and Narottam Das recap, but my takeaway that I am going to keep in my heart is it pleasing to the heart? Is it pleasing to the spiritual master? And is it pleasing to Krishna? And that'll help guide me in whether or not I'll continue to endeavor in material um, pursuits. So thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you all very much. Harrison is on the call is because I love working with this person. We sit every day and we are structuring a beautiful retreat in 2027. And it's called the circadian clock reset. Circadian clock reset, which is vipassana, silent, and being in darkness, and also working with food to recognize, oh, there's another retreat. So anyway, that's 2027. Keshavima, you have something
Yeah,
for the Catskills.
along the lines of this topic today of releasing control, we have a retreat on the topic of acceptance and surrender um, in New York in about a month. So we would love to have more of you join us. The link is in the chat.
Yeah, I like this place in New York in Catskills Mountains. It's a Buddhist retreat center. So it has a very powerful energy there. The Buddhists have been meditating there. So it's a nice place. If you are all eager to understand more about acceptance and surrender and experience it, please think about it and contact us. Okay. Thank you all very much. So grateful to be with all of you every Saturday. It's a treat for the heart to be in the company of other hearts. And namaste, everyone, and we'll see you next Saturday.
Thank you very
Namaste.
Blessings.
Haribo.
Namaste.
Hare
Goodbye.
Krishna.
Haribo.
Bye, Vedaji.
I like
Thank
the
you.
music.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Beautiful discourse today. Haribo.